The lobby is too bright for a Saturday morning glass, everywhere sky pouring in, and I watch my son's knuckles whiten around a blue folder. Darlene Cho, the manager at River City Credit Union, holds up a sealed envelope with my name on it. My heart knocks twice. I tap Bernie's elbow. "Let her open it," I say. Stephen looks up and freezes. He figured the storm had taken care of me. Kelly's voice turns papery. "There must be some mistake," she whispers, and everyone hears it. Darlene slides a letter opener under the flap and reads the first line in the same calm voice she uses to explain overdraft fees. "If you're reading this, I'm alive." A stir passes through the room. Darlene lays out the photos I gave her, a rubber hose sheared where it should be smooth, a brown stain beneath a car frame like dried tea. Then she reads the last line printed in my block letters, "Not my first rodeo." Stephen tries to speak, but the words land like loose lug nuts on tile. That was the climax. Now I'll tell you how a quiet week in Cedar Rapids climbed uphill into this moment. It started on a Thursday, the kind that smells like cut grass in the river if you crack your window. I'm Harold Pritchard Hal, to everyone, 72 retired machinist from the John Deere plant. I live in a single-story ranch on Intrepid Avenue with gutters I keep meaning to replace. My wife Ann has been gone 5 years. Grief tidied the house but left the corners dusty. I get my coffee at Hy-Vee because Lori with the pink nails calls me sweetheart and remembers the scratch-offs I buy and never win. My Buick LeSabre sat honest in the driveway, old but not tired. Men my age buy trucks they'll never fill or sports cars that kneel too low. I kept the Buick because it never lied. I was tucking a grocery list into my wallet when my phone chimed. The text was from Bernie Caldwell next door, a man who's known me since Nixon and has a handshake like a gate latch. "Hal, check your car." That was it. No hello, no explanation. Bernie isn't dramatic. He keeps to himself, fixes lawnmowers, shoots paper targets on Wednesdays. I stepped outside and looked toward his yard. No sign of him. The air had that hollow feeling before a storm when even the robins fall quiet. I popped the Buick's hood because a text like that means pay attention. Everything under there looked like it always did. Hoses, clamps, the dull grammar of a V6. I spotted a faint wetness near the firewall the size of a silver dollar. I dabbed it with my finger. Not oil. Thinner. Brake fluid smells like old pennies. I told myself I was borrowing trouble. The car still stopped fine in the driveway, so I used the word that keeps men like me alive and also gets us into trouble maybe. The appointment had been on the calendar for months. Mercy Medical smells like lemon cleaner and powdered gloves. The doctor listened to my chest and said, "Mr. Pritchard, you're stubbornly healthy." We talked sunscreen and shoes with support. On my way out, I watched the first ribs of rain lace the parking lot. Driving home, I tested the brakes at every light, slow, gentle pressure. Nothing dramatic, only a softness that could have been imagination. The unease sat behind my ribs like a library book due yesterday. My phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Stephen's picture filled the screen. The message was bright as a salesman. "Hey Dad, just confirming tomorrow morning at River City. We'll help you sign a few things, make life easier. Love you." Love you is what he says when he's moving a chess piece. I saved the message and kept both hands on the wheel. By the time I turned onto Intrepid, the rain had gotten ambitious. I backed the Buick into the garage tires, bumping the 2x4 I bolted down years ago to help Ann park straight. I slid onto a piece of cardboard and pulled myself under the bumper. A bead of brown thinness traced along a metal line. I wiped it. My finger came away slick. I lay there counting heartbeats until I didn't want to count anymore. The smart thing would have been to call Bernie. The stubborn thing was to close the garage door and sit at the workbench with the old radio. I stared at my father's wrench set and tried to remember when I stopped believing in coincidences. My hands found the flare nut wrench and a short roll of spare line I kept because you keep things when you're a machinist. I tightened what I could and set a pan beneath the drip. The fix held long enough to tell me the truth. Someone had been under my car who wasn't me. I didn't go next door. I didn't call Stephen. I washed my hands and poured coffee that tasted like pennies. Then I did something I'd never done in 72 years. I wrote myself a note and taped it inside the cabinet where we keep the bulbs. "You are not crazy. Trust what you saw." The weather map crawled across the TV in red and yellow like a lazy beetle. could have turned the Buick toward Bernie's garage right then. Instead, I walked room to room, touching chairbacks, the top of Anne's sewing machine, the picture frames that lean because I never learned the trick with putty. The house felt honest and small. I chose 3 things: my jacket, the folder with the deed and pension statements, and a photo of Anne in a Cubs cap. Out on the porch, the wind had started its rehearsal. I looked at Bernie's dark windows and thought about his 5 plain words. I breathed the damp smell of the storm and the faint metallic bite on my hands. I set the folder on the passenger seat, turned the key, and listened to the Buick tell me softly, honestly, that she would get me where I needed to go if I treated her gentle. That night would prove exactly why the warning mattered, but first I had to stay alive long enough to learn the rest and decide who to trust when morning came. I eased the Buick out of the garage like you carry a sleeping child, slow 2 hands, no sudden moves. Rain drummed a steady beat, turning the street to smoked glass. KCRG burbled warnings with that low tone that means pay attention. I took the long way for Space Intrepid to 42nd down toward the river. First stop sign, fine. Second, the pedal felt like a ripe peach soft before the squeeze. At the curve by the ball fields, it sank halfway, and my heart fell the rest. I downshifted, feathered the parking brake a click at a time, and begged every lesson from a lifetime of wrenches. The Buick slid, caught, and I coasted into the Casey's lot, breathing like I'd run a mile. Hazards on, wipers ticking. I could smell it now, thin, coppery brake fluid riding the wet air. Inside, the store smelled like pizza and damp cardboard. Need a tow and a good shop, I told the kid with a mop. He pointed 3 blocks. Martinez Auto. Ask for Luis. The tow arrived with a hiss. At Martinez Auto, a bell announced us. Fans chopped the humid air. A sleepy lab thumped his tail. Luis Martinez wiped his hands and gave my car the kind of look a doctor gives a bad x-ray. What's she doing? He asked. Spongy pedal. Near miss on wet pavement, I said. He had the Buick on the lift in minutes. I stood behind the yellow line like a man outside his own operating room. Luis set a light under the rear and went still. This wasn't where, he said. Rear line, passenger side. See that clean cut, rust tears jagged? This is shaved. Somebody put a tool on it. The room tilted. You sure? Iowa Cars and I have been arguing for 25 years, he said, snapping photos. I'll print these and put it on the invoice. People believe paper. Paper's good, I said. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I can patch you safe enough to get somewhere else tonight, he added. Full line tomorrow when it's dry. You got somewhere that isn't home. I nodded, a friend. He measured my face for a beat, then nodded back. Good. I'll note non-wear clean cut. Decide who sees it. The lab leaned into my leg like he knew. I paid and took 2 glossy photos and an invoice that said plain as scripture, rear brake line, compromised, clean cut, non-wear. The paper felt heavy in my jacket. Outside, the rain turned intentional. I called Bernie. He answered on the second ring. You all right? Mechanic says the rear line was cut, I said, and the world rearranged itself. He's got pictures, wrote it up. Don't go home, Bernie said. Bring the car here. Big doors going up. Bernie's garage smells like sawdust and old engine books. He had the door open before I hit his drive rain blowing sideways. We eased the Buick beside his mower in a canoe he swears he'll sell. He read the invoice, didn't speak for a long breath. You think Stephanie started and let it hang? I don't want to, I said. He has me set for River City tomorrow to sign a few things. Bernie's mouth went tight. Call the cops now and you'll get a report and a pat on the shoulder. If you want it to stop, let them show their hand where people can see. Donna at the VFW notarizes, I said. Knows every clerk in the county. Call her, he said. Donna answered over a game show's applause. When I told her, her voice landed like a gavel. Keep the originals dry. Tomorrow I'll meet you and the bank manager at opening. We'll set it so anything they bring floats next to your proof. Put it in writing. People respect a letter more than a speech. I've got my file box deed pension insurance, I said. Good. And Hal, she added softer. Don't sleep at your place. I'm at Bernie's. Smart. I'll bring my stamp. The wind rattled the back door. Bernie made coffee the way men do when they don't know what else to do with their hands. We sat at his kitchen table while the storm rearranged the map a little. He slid a legal pad toward me. Write the list, he said. When the mind's a mess, the hand can lead it out. I wrote photos, invoice, Donna 8:30, Darlene manager 8:45, print Stephen's voicemail, bring ID, don't call Stephen, don't go home. Under it I added what surprised me, forgive later, protect now. We spoke of Stephen and scraps him running bases with his hat crooked, the year after Anne died when every room had the wrong echo, how money when near changes the shape of a room. Close to midnight the power dipped and came back. I set up Bernie's cot in a wool blanket that smelled like November hunts. The rain hammered the roof with both fists. Somewhere inside it, I heard a different beat resolve. I slid the invoice under my pillow like a boy with a secret comic and felt 12 and ready. Just before sleep, my phone buzzed. A text from Stephen: Dad, don't drive in this, okay? We'll handle everything at the bank tomorrow. Love ya. Love ya, that's the phrase he uses when he moves a chess piece. I turned the phone face down and let the storm talk. I thought of Anne's Cubs cap on the shelf and how she used to say, "Hal, trust what you see." I was finally doing it. Bernie snored in the next room, steady and human. I pictured the credit union lobby glass bright Darlene and her blazer tellers who know me by name, Stephen's blue folder, his jaw when he thinks he's the smartest one in the room. I imagined walking in alive. A siren wailed and faded. I breathed with it and settled on the plan that fit my bones. Stay put, show up early, put everything on paper and let the light do the work. The last thought before sleep was the note I would write in the morning. You are not crazy. Trust what you saw. It felt like tightening a bolt I knew would hold. Dawn came in pieces, a thin silver seam under the blinds, the hush a storm leaves when it runs out of breath. Bernie was already up, kettle on radio low. The house smelled like coffee and wet wool. He handed me a mug and tapped the legal pad from last night, the list sitting there like a promise. I added lines, print voicemail, make 2 copies of everything, bring IDs, ask for the manager in private, don't get drawn into a hallway argument, let paper talk. The power had held. We drove to the all-night Walgreens on First Avenue because their photo kiosk never sleeps. I laid out what Luis had given me, 2 glossy photos with the pale cone of light circles on the torn brake line and those blessed numbers stamped at the bottom time date shop. I printed them as 8x10s. Big pictures let the eye decide faster than the tongue can lie. Bernie reread the invoice while the printer chattered. Back at Bernie's, I wrote the letter the way Donna taught me when Anne and I updated our wills, short plain dated. I stated my name and address. I wrote that my rear brake line had been intentionally compromised, that a licensed mechanic found a clean cut, that my son Stephen had scheduled me for a meeting at River City Credit Union to sign financial documents I had not agreed to, that I feared coercion fraud or elder exploitation. I attached copies of the photos, Luis's invoice, and a transcript of Stephen's voicemail. At the bottom, I printed 3 words that felt like a hand on my own shoulder: not my first rodeo. Donna called at 8:02. I spoke with Darlene, she said. Side door at 8:30. We'll set it so anything they bring floats next to your proof. Let me talk first. You just tell the truth. You're a good friend, I said. I'm a clerk who hates bullies, she said, and hung up. We left the Buick in Bernie's garage and took his truck. The sun broke through in hard white squares, lighting roof shingles like fresh slate. Storm branches were down. A mailbox leaned like it had stayed up all night. River City Credit Union sits with its chin up and all that glass. Darlene Cho met us at the side door in a navy blazer and sneakers she'd change later. She can smile from the eyes down without giving anything away. Hal, she said softly, Donna told me enough. Let's set this up the right way. Her office had a window on the lobby and a file cabinet with a plant that needed turning. Donna took a seat, pulled out her notary journal and stamp, and nodded for me to begin. I laid the packet on Darlene's desk and walked her through it. The photos, the invoice, the voicemail transcript, the letter. She scanned and rescanned, clean cut. We'll attach these to an internal alert, she said. If Stephen or Kelly present anything involving your accounts, we pause and verify. If they push a power of attorney or deed transfer, we'll require a private verification with you present. If they press beyond that, I invite an officer to keep it civil. I don't want a scene, I said. I want the truth where people can see it. That's our specialty, Darlene said. Do you want me to hold a sealed envelope with instructions? That's what I was hoping, I said. Donna slid me a fresh manila envelope. I stacked the letter, the photos, the invoice copy, and the voicemail transcript and sealed them in. On the front, I printed in block letters, "To be opened by manager only. If Stephen Pritchard presents documents for my signature or represents himself as my agent." Darlene added the date and her initials across the seal. "Chain of custody," she said. "Bankers are just librarians with money." She copied my driver's license and my member card. "We know you, Hal," she added, and I looked at the plant so nobody watched me get watery. We walked the lobby to see it fresh. Tellers straightening cash drawers, a little boy in a Cubs t-shirt pressing his face to the glass. The clock over the door said 8:56. Darlene touched my elbow. "I'll have you step into the side conference room when they arrive," she said. "I'll open the envelope, only if they try something. If they don't, you decide how much you want to say." "You sure you want to do it this way?" Darlene asked me one more chance to pick a quieter road. "I'm sure," I said. "Sunlight's cheaper than lawyers and I'm not ready to pay either." She smiled with her whole face. "You've got a way with plain words, Mr. Pritchard." I stood by the window and watched the parking lot collect people. Saturday mornings at the credit union run like a small-town parade. A plumber with deposits, a teacher with a fundraiser envelope, a guy in a Hawkeye's hoodie checking his balance with a thumb on his phone. At 9:03, a blue Corolla swung in too fast and jutted across two spaces. I didn't need to see the plates. Stephen climbed out in that blue shirt he wears to look official. Kelly smoothed her ponytail in the mirror and took the folder like it might jump. He checked his phone, then the bank doors, then his watch like the second hand owed him money. He has my jawline and his mother's eyes. He used to grip my index finger with his whole hand and fall asleep on my chest after Little League losses. A lifetime can fit in a lobby if you let it. Darlene nodded toward the conference room. Donna nudged my elbow. Bernie moved his chair to catch the best angle on the stage he'd helped light. I breathed in the clean smell of glass and lemon cleaner and tired carpet. The clock said 9:04. The door chime sounded a bright little bell, and my son came in carrying a blue folder and an idea of himself that was about to meet the truth. Darlene greeted them with the same front desk smile she uses on farmers and first graders, that sunny Iowa hello that takes the edge off impatience. "Good morning," she said. "How can we help you today?" Stephen lifted the blue folder, my blue folder from Christmas 3 years ago when we cleaned the hall closet, and I gave him extra file sleeves and put it on the counter like a winning hand. "We have an appointment," he said. "I'm acting for my father, Harold Pritchard. He asked us to handle a few things." Kelly slid in a sad tilt of the head. "He's been overwhelmed," she said softly, and there it was, the first little hook tossed into the water. From the conference room doorway, I could see the lobby reflected in the glass like a little stage. Donna sat to my left, neat as a ledger. Bernie leaned back, thick arms crossed, looking like an usher who could remove a problem without creasing his jacket. I stayed behind the jam, not hiding, just not volunteering my face until the moment mattered. "Of course," Darlene said. "Let me pull up your member record." Her fingers moved over the keyboard with that quiet confidence of someone who's done this 1,000 Saturdays. "I see Mr. Pritchard has been a member here since 1984. You mentioned acting for him. Do you have a power of attorney?" Stephen opened the folder and produced a stapled stack with a clip so new the edges still bit. "Right here," he said. "We printed from the internet and filled it in. He signed yesterday." Donna let out the smallest sound in her throat, half cough, half pencil tap, but Darlene didn't show a flicker. "I'll need to review that," she said. "And Mr. Pritchard will need to be present for certain changes." She tilted her screen away, standard practice. Banks are like barbers used to conversations people later pretend they didn't have. "We can't bring him today," Kelly murmured. "It's the storm and his, you know." She let the sentence trail off into a shape that could be any ailment a listener needed it to be. "His what?" Darlene asked, eyes kind but steady. "Memory?" Stephen said quick. "He forgets things. He wants us to simplify." He pushed another paper forward, something that looked like a deed form with a county watermark. "And we'd like to update the deed," he added, like he was ordering 2 more tenderloins at the diner. "Title transfer for estate planning." Darlene glanced at the lobby clock, gave herself a heartbeat, then looked back at Stephen. "Our policy requires private verification with the member for transactions like those," she said. "And for a power of attorney to be effective here, we require notarization with specific language. May I see the notary seal?" "There's a signature," Kelly said, tapping the bottom, and our friend Ellen signed as a witness. No, notary, Darlene said gently, like you tell a child a pet will need to sleep outside. And even then, our legal department has to accept it after review. Stephen's jaw tightened the way mine used to when a bolt refused to budge. He asked me to do this, he said. He doesn't want to come in. Darlene's smile didn't move. Then I can offer you information to take home, she said, but I can't change ownership or access without Mr. Pritchard present or an approved legal instrument. Kelly exhaled through her nose, patience fraying. Maybe you didn't hear me, she said. He forgets. He gets anxious. We're trying to help. Donna leaned toward me. They always pick that word, she whispered. Help. Stephen shifted tactics. Can we at least set up view-only access so we can keep an eye on bills? He slid a smaller form across something he'd printed from a blog where good ideas go to be misused. Darlene lifted the paper and set it neatly on the stack. We set up online access with the member, she said. In person. Stephen's voice rose a notch. We're family, he said, the word landing like a badge he thought would open doors. Exactly, Darlene said, which is why we do it carefully. Kelly tried another angle. He told us not to let him make mistakes in the storm. He said to take care of everything. She looked around the lobby as if the walls would nod along. Darlene tapped a key and stood. Would you mind stepping into the conference room? She said, tone still soft. We can talk more privately. Stephen drew himself up, ready for a hallway victory. They followed her past the pens on chains and the bowl of lollipops and into the room where Donna's stamp waited with its little square shadow. I stepped back a pace so I wouldn't be the first thing they saw, listening to the air conditioner hum and the polite hush that falls when money is about to be discussed. Darlene took the chair at the head of the small table and opened a clean folder. For matters involving older members, she said, we follow a process designed to protect everyone in the room. I need to ask a few standard questions. Kelly pasted on a smile that didn't reach the eyes. Of course. Has Mr. Pritchard been diagnosed with any condition that affects his capacity to make financial decisions? Darlene asked. No, Stephen said too fast, then corrected. We haven't taken him in for that. Has he authorized you formally to act on his behalf at this credit union? Darlene continued. He asked us to help, Kelly said. Same difference. And do you currently hold any notarized power of attorney executed according to Iowa law? Darlene asked. Silence, then 3 heartbeats long. Stephen shifted in his chair. We have this, he said, tapping the printed form. We'll notarize it later. Bank policy. Darlene said requires it before we accept it. She turned a page on her legal pad. One more question. Did either of you enter Mr. Pritchard's home or vehicle without his knowledge in the last 72 hours? Kelly blinked. What? It's a standard question, Darlene said, not blinking. We ask it when we see red flags for elder financial exploitation. Stephen laughed a sound with no humor in it. This is ridiculous, he said. If you can't help us, we'll just go to the main branch. You're welcome to, Darlene said, but this alert follows the member record. He stood. Then get the manager, he said, sharper now. I am the manager, Darlene replied, and if pride had a temperature, it would have matched her voice exactly. That's when she reached into the file drawer at her elbow and took out the manila envelope, my handwriting loud across the front. Stephen's eyes flicked to it and away, then back like he'd seen his own name on a report card. What's that? Kelly asked. A note Mr. Pritchard left for me, Darlene said. To be opened only if anyone presented documents on his behalf. She set it in the middle of the table, the way you set down a center cut of ham at a Sunday dinner and wait to see who reaches first. Kelly swallowed. He isn't here, she said, so I'll have him join us shortly, Darlene said, and glanced to the door, the cue I had told her to give when it was time. My hand found the doorknob. Through the glass, I could see the lobby, a little boy peeling a grape lollipop, Bernie's chin lifting a millimeter. Donna's fingers poised over her journal, Darlene's shoulders squared, Stephen's jaw tightening like an over-tightened bolt about to snap. Darlene slid a letter opener under the flap and looked up at me without turning her head, a tiny nod that said, Now, Hal. Time to let the paper talk. Darlene's letter opener whispered through paper. She lifted the flap, slid out my packet, and kept her voice steady enough to balance a cup on. This is a letter from Mr. Harold Pritchard, dated this morning, she said. I'll read the first line aloud. If you're reading this, I'm alive. Kelly's mouth fell open like a hinge that needed oil. Stephen didn't move, but his fingers tightened on the blue folder until the plastic showed white at the edges. I stepped into the doorway and let the light do the introduction. He looked up. For a second, the boy who used to fall asleep on my chest after Little League losses stared at me through a man who had printed a power of attorney off the internet. "Dad," he said, "careful as carrying soup. You shouldn't be out in this weather." "It's sunny, son," I said. "You missed the weather." Darlene unfolded the photos and set them in the table's center, big 8x10s of a shiny line with a clean-shaved notch and the pale cone of a work light. She angled them so the room couldn't mistake what they were looking at. "This is the rear brake line of Mr. Pritchard's vehicle," she said. "The invoice attached reads, 'Rear brake line, compromised clean-cut non-wear.' It's signed by Luis Martinez at Martinez Auto. Time and date are stamped." Russ Stevens said quickly, like he'd found a loophole in a joke. "Iowa cars rust." "Rust tears," Darlene replied, eyes level. "This is shaved." Kelly tried for sympathy. "He's been on edge since Mom died. She said the way some people say the word toothache." Donna cleared her throat and laid her notary journal open like a hymn book. "We're here to make sure no one leans on Mr. Pritchard," she said. "Bank policy and Iowa law both like sunlight." Stephen placed the stapled pages in front of Darlene with a clack, like a dealer who thinks the house is asleep. "Power of attorney," he announced. "It'll be notarized later. He wants us to streamline everything. It's our duty to help. Bank policy requires acceptance by our legal department before any POA is acted upon," Darlene said, "and we require the member's private verification for significant changes." She tapped the deed form he'd slid forward. "Title updates are recorded at the county after review and verification with the member. Dad asked us to handle things," Kelly insisted. He gets confused. "Do I asked and let the room breathe with the question." Stephen switched to a softer gear. "We're just trying to make it easier," he said, jaw flexing. "Bills, taxes, the house, it's a lot. Easier for who I asked, not unkind, because you can love somebody and still need the truth to come out of your mouth." Bernie unfolded his arms, not to intimidate, just to remind the room that outside eyes existed. Darlene looked from the photos to the invoice to the deed form. "For my records," she said, "I'd like to add 2 additional staff as witnesses." She pressed a button. Through the glass, a teller and the compliance officer drifted closer, business casual angels. "Mr. Pritchard also provided a transcript of a voicemail," Darlene said, holding up a page. "From you, Stephen, yesterday. Dad, don't drive in this. We'll handle everything at the bank tomorrow. Love ya." "Which is what a caring son would say," Kelly snapped, as if kindness could rewrite timestamps. "And a caring son wouldn't bring a non-notarized POA the morning after the member's brake line was cut," Donna said mildly, like noting rain on a picnic table. Stephen sat back and tried a different tack. "Maybe a vandal did it," he said. "Random crime." "Random crime that just happens to line up with your appointment and your deed form," Donna said, still mild. I placed my palms flat on the table, the way I used to settle a piece of oak before cutting it. "Stephen, I said I changed your diapers on a night the Cubs lost by 8. I taught you lefty threads and righty tighty. I stood behind the fence at your games and kept my mouth shut when your coach didn't see you. I would have given you my driveway if you'd asked right." I swallowed. "But you don't cut a man's brakes and call it help." He flushed. I didn't. "Then show me a better story," I said. "Bring me something that makes more sense than your printout in my brake line." The compliance officer, a woman with a bun so tight it made me straighten my back, slid into a chair and scanned the documents. "Manager Cho," she said to Darlene, "we have sufficient indicators to file an internal elder exploitation alert and to pause any requested changes pending law enforcement." Kelly made a quiet, strangled sound like a tea kettle that didn't want to be a tea kettle anymore. "We're family," she said, and the word felt thinner every time she used it. "Which is why we proceed carefully," Darlene said again, and it sounded like a mantra that had paid the credit union's light bill for years. Stephen tried to gather the deed form back into his folder. Darlene placed a fingertip on the corner with the kind of authority only 1,000 Saturdays can teach. "These remain with the record," she said. "Dad, can we talk outside?" Stephen asked, and now the careful voice had a wobble in it, as if he'd discovered the floor wasn't where it had been. "We'll talk," I said. "But first I'm going to finish this part where the truth sits still long enough to be seen." Darlene turned another page of my letter and read the last line out loud, because we'd agreed that words on paper should do as much of the work as possible. "Not my first rodeo. Stephen stared at it like it might sprout hooves and run. He laughed one dry bark. "You think you're in a movie," he said. "No," I said. "I'm in a bank in Cedar Rapids on a Saturday and I'm tired." The teller and compliance officer both signed the witness line. Donna stamped the page with the tidy thunk that used to make her whole day. The seal left a raised circle that caught the light. Outside the glass, the lobby had become more awake. People know when a room inside a room carries a charge. Kelly reached for her purse. "This is humiliating," she whispered. "It's clarifying," Donna said. "Humiliation is what you feel when the light is honest." Darlene stacked the documents, the photos on top, so the cut's shiny edge looked like a thin grin. She squared the envelope beside them and looked at me. "Mr. Pritchard, would you like to keep this discussion here?" she asked. "Or would you prefer we move to the lobby so your member record update is witnessed in full? I'm comfortable either way." I looked at my son at the folder he'd brought in like a prize turkey at the photo of a line that should have carried fluid so I could stop at red lights and live to fill out forms. I thought about Anne turning a seam inside out to check her stitch, about how she used to say, "If you can't do it in daylight, don't do it." "I'd like to do this where folks can see," I said. "Plain sight saves trouble later." Darlene stood. "Then with your permission," she said, "we'll step out and make this part of the record in the lobby." Stephen swallowed hard. Kelly pressed her lips into a line. Bernie shifted his weight like a man who knows the next fence post to set. Donna capped her stamp with a little flourish like a musician closing a case. We rose together, papers, neat facts, tidy a small storm in sensible shoes, stepping toward glass and carpet, and the world where things either hide or hang true. I opened the conference room door and felt the lobby air like a cooler hand on a fevered forehead. The little bell over the entrance chimed for someone else and for us. We stepped into the lobby like a small parade. Darlene first, then me with Donna, and the compliance officer Bernie bringing up the rear. The light off the glass felt brighter than before, like the room had tilted toward noon. People turned the way people do when the hum in a place changes pitch. The little boy in the Cubs shirt stopped chewing his lollipop. Darlene didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Good morning," she said. "Mr. Pritchard is here to update his member record. We'll be doing that at the front counter." Stephen hesitated at the door of the conference room, that blue folder in his hands like a flotation device. Kelly touched his elbow, and they followed. He tried to smile at me. It landed crooked. Darlene laid my photos on the counter, the invoice on top, then my letter, then the transcript of Stephen's voicemail. She built a stack like a carpenter squares a corner true and obvious. She looked at the compliance officer who nodded and picked up the desk phone. "Officer on the way," the compliance officer said into the receiver. "Non-emergency elder exploitation indicators and attempted fraud. No threats. Yes, we'll hold the paperwork." She hung up and wrote a time in a tidy box on a form. A man in a seed cap near the brochure rack muttered, "Well, I'll be to nobody in particular." The plumber I'd seen earlier stood a little straighter. The teller closest to us tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and watched with the open, unjudging attention of someone who has learned to spot trouble by the cut of it. Darlene took a breath that set her shoulders and looked at me. "Mr. Pritchard," she said, "would you like to state in your own words the purpose of your visit today?" I put my palm on the counter because it felt like a place where the truth could live. "I'm here to make sure my accounts stay mine," I said. "I'm here to ask that any document that says otherwise be treated as suspect, especially a power of attorney presented without me present." I tapped the photo. "And I'm here to place these with my member record because someone cut the brake line on my Buick last night. A licensed mechanic documented it." Stephen angled his body toward me, the way you do when you want to move a conversation into the old family room where other ears can't follow. "Dad," he said quietly, "you don't have to do this here." "I have to do it exactly here," I said. "You brought your folder to a public place, so did I." Kelly folded her hands like she was cold. "We were trying to help," she murmured, but the word didn't catch. Donna opened her notary journal on the counter like a hymnal and dated a new line. "I'm witnessing Mr. Pritchard's statement for the record," she said, pen precise. Bernie took one step sideways so Stephen couldn't slide around us to take the papers back. He didn't touch him. He just existed in the right place at the right time. Darlene turned the invoice so the counter cameras could see the header. "We'll scan these into the secure member file," she said, "and attach an alert that no changes be made without manager approval and Mr. Pritchard present. We will file an internal report under elder financial exploitation protocols. Exploitation, Stephen barked. That's a stretch. Words have definitions, Darlene said calmly. We'll let the officer advise. The door chime rang and a gust of clean air came in with Officer Dana Lutz, one of Cedar Rapids' weekend regulars. I knew her from Church Fish Fry's good listener steady hands. She took in the room the way a good mechanic scans an engine bay. Morning, she said. What have we got? Darlene gave the short version photos invoice, voicemail, attempted POA, and deed transfer without the member the timing. Officer Lutz looked at the photos, then the invoice, then me. Mr. Pritchard, she said, are you safe right now? I am, I said. I didn't sleep at home, and I'm in a room full of people who read forms for a living. That got a quick grin out of the teller and a cough of approval from the plumber. The little boy held up his lollipop and whispered to his mom, "That's the police," as if he'd discovered a celebrity. Officer Lutz spoke to Stephen and Kelly the way you talk to folks you hope won't make your day harder. "Sir, ma'am, you're welcome to say your piece," she said, "but the documents you've brought today won't be acted on by the credit union. We'll take copies for a report. I'll also take a statement and advise on the next steps." Kelly blinked fast. "We didn't cut anything," she said. "We just printed a form. We were trying to help." "Help looks different," Officer Lutz said. "Help doesn't need a signature hidden in a stack or a meeting without the person who owns the name." Stephen tried a smile that had too many teeth. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. "Dad's always been a bit dramatic." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw both faces, at once the boy who once cried when I sanded a splinter out of his finger, and the man who brought a blue folder to a bank on a Saturday morning to borrow my life. "I'm done being dramatic," I said. "I'm being exact." Officer Lutz asked Darlene for a copy of the invoice and photos. Darlene handed over neat duplicates initialed and dated. The compliance officer slid a form across to Stephen. "Please write your full name and contact information," she said, "for the record." He hesitated, then took the pen. It made a tiny squeak on the counter. Kelly stared at her hands like they might float her out of the room if she believed hard enough. "Mr. Pritchard," Officer Lutz said, "do you want a no contact for financial matters with either party until we finish our report?" "I want a pause," I said. "They can call my attorney if they need something. They can come by for Sunday dinner if they remember how to eat without paperwork." A small laugh cracked the room open. Even Darlene's mouth twitched. The little boy's mom smiled down at him and whispered something that made him nod solemnly, like he'd learned a new rule about how adults are supposed to act. Stephen's breath came short. "You're making a mistake," he said to me, voice low. "I already made one," I said. "I waited too long to say no." Darlene printed a receipt, the kind that isn't about money, just time and ink, and the fact that something happened in a way you can point to later. She stamped the member alert and slid a customer copy of my letter back to me, the raised notary seal catching the lobby light like a coin at the bottom of a creek. "Anything else you'd like on the record, Mr. Pritchard?" she asked. I thought about Anne's stitched seams and the smell of brake fluid under the rain, about Lori at Hy-Vee calling me sweetheart, about Bernie's garage and Donna's stamp about a town that mostly minds its business but shows up when the business is the truth. I put my fingers on the counter so I wouldn't jab them in the air. "Yes," I said. "Growing old doesn't make you easy to move. It just makes you better at knowing where to stand." Officer Lutz nodded once like a judge tapping a pencil. "That'll do," she said. Stephen opened his mouth, then closed it. He gathered his folder without meeting my eye. Kelly stood and found every reason to look at the ceiling. They started for the door. Nobody reached to stop them. This wasn't that kind of scene. Doors opened both ways in a free country. But every step they took out of that lobby felt like a thing set back where it belonged. The bell chimed when they left. The room exhaled the way a shop exhales when the engine finally fires after a long turn of the key. Darlene shook my hand. Donna patted my arm, twice her version of a hug. Bernie squeezed my shoulder with a grip that could hold a ladder steady in a wind. "Paper did the talking," Darlene said. "Sunlight did," I said. "You just drew the blinds." The little boy waved his lollipop at me like a flag. "Good job, mister," he said. His mother shushed him, but I tipped an invisible cap. Outside, the street shone clean. The storm had done its work and moved on. Inside, a different kind of weather had changed, and the room felt right in its bones again. Outside the credit union, the day had that washed, clean look Iowa gets after a hard rain, edges sharper air smelling like wet concrete and cut grass. Bernie and Donna stood with me under the overhang while Officer Lutz finished with Darlene inside. People came and went, pretending not to look and failing at it. A woman in a seed cap gave me a small salute with 2 fingers. I nodded back. You don't need speeches when a nod will hold. Officer Lutz stepped out with a clipboard and a calm face. All right, Mr. Pritchard, she said. We've logged your documents and opened an elder exploitation case. I'm adding a patrol note for your address. If you'd like, I can connect you with Adult Protective Services, not because you can't protect yourself, but because they're good at building a paper fence. Paper fences hold better than angry words, Donna said. Bernie snorted, especially when the posts are straight. Lutz handed me a card. I'll be your point of contact, she said. If anything feels off, call. Tonight, don't sleep at home. Change whatever locks you've been meaning to change. Tomorrow, let's talk about a simple security camera. Nothing fancy. Thank you, I said. You came in steady. That helped. It's the job, she said, then added softer, and the town. Bernie offered breakfast like the gospel. Bluebird Diner, he said. Egg, sausage, coffee that could walk on its own. Donna laughed. And pie. We earned pie before noon. At the diner, the bell over the door hit the note it hits for regulars. The place smelled like bacon and 1,000 Saturdays. Luis from the shop was at the counter, grease cleaned from his hands, but it lingers on a man like a tune. He saw me and lifted his chin. You okay? He asked. I am, I said. Your invoice did half the talking. Pictures do the rest, he said. Bring the car back when it's dry. I'll pull the whole line and replace with steel. I'll bag the cut piece for you, chain of custody. He said the last part like a guy proud to have learned the right phrase. We took a booth. Lori, the same pink nails from Hy-Vee on weekdays, did Saturdays at the Bluebird too. There's my sweetheart, she said, pouring coffee as if the pot were part of her arm. She didn't ask. She just set down 3 menus and a look that said she'd heard already. News travels in a small town by osmosis and pie plate. Bernie told the story short. Donna filled in the legal bones. I gave the parts where a father's voice cracks without making a fool of himself. Lori listened and squeezed my shoulder. You did right, she said. Sunlight beats gossip. While we ate, my phone buzzed with messages stacking like plates. Stephen, then Kelly, then a number I didn't know that smelled like a lawyer. I set the phone face down. The sausage tasted like someone's memory of campfires. Donna carved her pie like a judge allocating punishment. On the ride back to Bernie's, the calls kept coming. Finally, I answered. Stephen's voice wore its Sunday best. Dad, we should talk privately, he said. This got out of hand. It got exactly into hand, I said. Yours carrying papers you printed wrong. He sighed. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed yourself, I said. You're the one who brought the folder. Silence. I could hear the road under his tires wherever he was and the way a man presses his jaw when he's trying to stand on a rug that just moved. I'm not the bad guy, he said. Kelly's mom said. I don't live with Kelly's mom, I said. I live with the facts I can hold up to the light. If you want to talk, we'll do it at my kitchen table when I've changed the locks and when no paper is on the table but a placemat. You come hungry and empty-handed. We start there. He started to argue, then ran out of gas. Fine, he said. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, I said, after church. I'm not negotiating, son. I'm setting hours. Back at Bernie's, we opened the garage and let the Buick breathe. The concrete still held damp in the dark spots. I wiped the hood like a man thanks a horse for getting him home. Luis pulled up an hour later in his own truck with a box of parts. Figured I'd make a house call, he said. Less drama here. He laid out the new line, the fittings, the flares. He worked while we stood around him like men always do when another man does a job well. He bagged the section with the clean cut, sealed it, labeled it with a Sharpie Pritchard Buick RR, line cut, date, time. He handed it to me like a relic. Put that with your papers, he said. Truth keeps better in a bag than in a story. By late afternoon, the town had righted itself. I walked my own house with Bernie room by room the way you walk a fence line after wind. We changed the deadbolt and the back doorknob. I set the old key in a drawer like a coin not worth spending. I taped a fresh note inside the bulb cabinet. You are not crazy. Trust what you saw. Then I wrote a second line. Forgive later. Protect now. That evening, the Cubs lost in the 10th the way they sometimes do, kindly, as if to remind you not to hang your heart on a team. I made a simple dinner, eggs, toast, tomatoes, and ate at the table where Anne once hemmed pants and graded papers and circled recipes in blue ink. The house felt like itself. The brake fluid smell was gone. Lemon cleaner had won. Sunday morning, I took the Buick around the block, then to church. Pastor Joe preached on light, of course he did, and on boundaries that aren't walls but doors, with hinges that swing both ways. After the service, people hugged me in that gentle Midwestern way, one arm, no fuss. Proud of you, someone murmured into my shoulder. I believed them. Stephen came by at 2 alone, hands empty. He looked 10 years older than he had in the lobby. We sat. The clock ticked the way Anne's slow roast used to. He started, started again. I was scared, he said finally. The house, the bills, the idea of losing you and not being ready. Kelly pushes. I let her. It felt easier to do something than to sit in the waiting. You did something and made it worse, I said. Read this. I slid him a copy of my letter. He read in a quiet that I had missed. When he got to the last line, he smiled despite himself. Not my first rodeo, he said. No, I said. And it doesn't have to be yours either. You can learn without cutting corners. If you want to be on my papers, we'll go to Donna together with a lawyer who knows our names. You don't sneak up on a man's life. You knock on the front door. He nodded, a genuine one this time. I'm sorry, he said. Really? Good, I said. Now show me. I poured coffee. We talked about pension math and house upkeep and who gets the snowblower when I'm gone. We wrote something that looked like a plan and nothing like a plot. That night I drove to Hy-Vee just to let Lori call me sweetheart. On the way home, the Buick felt firm and honest under my hand. I stopped at the light on First, not because I had to, there was no traffic, but because stopping at red is one of the few simple things you can still trust will make a day better. I rolled down the window. The town smelled like mowed yards and grill smoke and second chances. If you're listening to this and you've got a neighbor you haven't waved to in a while, wave. If you've got paperwork in a shoebox, put it in order. If a voice tells you to check your car, check your car. And if this story steadied, you share it with someone you love. There's more where this came from, plain-spoken stories about standing your ground without losing your heart. Subscribe if you want to hear the next one. Either way, keep your eyes open, your bolts tight, and your light on.